Space Fliers of the Alpha Corps. Captain, Captain! It echoed in panic. The energy shield of our ship has collapsed. Jets of energy are hitting us directly. Where is the answer? Where is the salvation? It feverishly ran through his mind. Alpha Rift, inverse phase shift, wormhole. Captain, Captain, Captain! Space date. Zenith, 22 to 304, 227. Great chaos in Sector R-9 Squadron in the twilight of war. The Alpha Squadron of fighters, led by the main cruiser Aurelian Star, was breaking through hyperspace in the direction of the distant Sector R-9. No one expected a call from that direction. In recent months, that part of the border had been stable, almost peaceful, with no signs of major enemy activity. But now, according to the urgent signals arriving one after another, the enemy had broken through several defensive points and threatened the supply lines deep in Union territory. In the command cabin, the light of bluish holograms illuminated the tired eyes of two old friends, the skilled, cunning, and mocking fighter Sergeant Gordan and his irreplaceable friend, Captain Ralde, a person whom many considered a mad genius, the smartest, bravest, and most stubborn man in the fleet. More than once he had saved lives with unconventional ideas that others would consider insane. But today, a more than serious problem stood before them. Gordan was nervously pacing the cabin while Ralde held on to the supports of the main tactical table, studying the projections shifting before his eyes. How the blazes did this happen? Gordan fired out so abruptly that even the two young officers at the side consoles flinched. We fortified that line like a castle. Energy walls, tactical mines, a pile of Alpha Fliers, like we dug trenches and surrounded them with a water moat full of sharks. And now command tells us it ripped open like paper. Well, it looks like the sharks weren't that effective, Ralde said with a tired smile. His face, usually calm and confident, now looked exhausted. I also don't understand how they broke through past so many Alpha fighters, Gordan snorted. The enemy must have discovered something new, some trick, some technology, some nonsense we didn't pay attention to. At that moment, the cruiser emerged from hyperspace. In front of them was a sight no one wanted to see. The silence before disaster. On the hollow projection screens, space opened like a black abyss streaked with glowing traces of battle. Thousands of tiny reflections marked the wreckage of Alpha fighters. This can't be reality, Gordan stammered. Ralde didn't answer. He stared ahead with growing disbelief. The officers were also stunned by what they saw. Ralde stepped closer to the command console, his eyes flickering in an unusual mix of thought and calculation. His mind was already working at full power. What in the blazes is this now? Gordan hissed. Why are the Alpha units standing still? Why are they just standing there letting themselves be destroyed? At that moment, a jet of unknown energy passed through the energy shields and struck their cruiser. The cabin shook as if hit by lightning and the power went out. Instantly, similar strikes hit one fighter after another in their escort. Every ship after being hit was like dead. No explosion, no smoke. Just simply shut down and silence. Man, what is happening? Gordan asked in confusion. The control panels of the cruiser began shutting down one by one. The main systems, communication modules, targeting systems, energy grids, all fell like dominoes. Ralde shouted, "Turn on backup power, now!" The officers rushed to the terminals. After several tense seconds, the ship flickered and the glowing amber emergency lighting lit up across the entire bridge. What is that all? Gordan almost whispered. Of the enormous, technologically most advanced cruiser of the Union, only the lights, life support, thrusters, and basic ship replicators still functioned. The navigation system was barely glowing, shields had fallen, and the weapons were dead. Androids that changed destiny. All remaining ships switched to thrusters, hide behind the cruiser, Ralde thundered. Our hull can take dozens of direct hits without breaking. Gordan burst out. It can take, but not forever. Better that than nothing, Ralde replied. How did that damn beam get through our shields? Gordan said, irritated. They must have somehow learned its frequency. Regardless, they couldn't use anything lethal because the secondary shield would stop it, but the beam could pass through, Ralde said. We have to find out what the target of their attack was and how they disabled us, Gordan said angrily. At that moment, Ralde shouted, "Activate the searcher androids! Immediately!" On the command table, several rows of codes flickered, and then the deck shook as dozens of small robotic bodies the size of a 3-year-old child slid out of special compartments. These were JB models marked with various numbers: techno-searchers, workers, and fighters. Small, incredibly fast, and equipped with fine sensors that could detect anomalies in energy fields and material within a millisecond. Many soldiers didn't like them. They found them too strange and too unknown. "Look, where did they come from?" Gordan said in surprise. "Remember the android at the station when we were left without rest a few years ago?" Ralde glanced at him sideways. "Don't tell me you got them for our cruiser?" Gordan laughed even now. "I knew we'd need them one day, and you were impressed with that android, admit it." "Maybe a little," Gordan murmured, but his smile betrayed him. The androids scattered across the ship, sliding across the ceiling, walls and floor like living shadows. Their drones emitted thin blue scanning rays, bouncing off metal plates and extracting data at a speed no human could follow. After several minutes of investigation, one of the androids appeared before Ralde and Gordan. "Captain Ralde," it spoke in a metallic yet surprisingly pleasant voice, "we have found an anomaly. The hits of the enemy beam targeted the only chip on the ship that cannot be fully protected by primary or secondary energy shields due to its function, the energy distribution chip." Gordan cursed. "Clever bastards! They found our only weak spot. The only one." Ralde thundered. "Give me the specification of that chip." The holograms lit up, and the two of them began studying the diagram. Gordan murmured. "It has only 10 active circuits we cannot fully protect. Their beam obviously hits exactly those. That's enough for them to disable all Union ships." "Only 10, Ralde said quietly, and then his eyes lit up. "I have an idea." He didn't wait to explain. He shouted, "Quick, to the replicator!" The ship that still braves. As they ran toward the replication sector, enemy salvos struck the cruiser relentlessly. The hull cracked, lights dimmed and flared again, and the walls creaked as if the whole ship complained under the blows. Meanwhile, the androids switched into maintenance mode, something few had ever seen live. Their bodies transformed, grew, and their rapid automatic welding torches began sealing cracks in the ship's hull with extraordinary speed, preventing deck decompression. Gordan stopped for only a moment to watch, completely fascinated. "Wow," Gordan said in disbelief. "These little ones are worth gold." Now he felt a little guilt remembering what he first thought of them on that busy station. They rushed into the replicator room. Ralde immediately began dictating the specifications of the new component. "Make a printed circuit board with the following elements," he commanded with the speed of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. The replicator worked at full capacity. Sparks and bluish jets of materialization shot from its core. After several tense minutes from its chamber emerged, a huge printed circuit board so large that 2 men barely carried it. On the board were elements of strange appearance. Cylinders, circular chambers, thick glass tubes, and cables that looked like something from a museum of early technology. Gordan raised an eyebrow. "What in the world is this?" "This will save us," Ralde answered briefly. "Let's go to the engine room." One step from cataclysm. The cruiser creaked like it would fall apart any moment. The shields were not working. The defensive systems were dead. The enemy intensified fire. In the engine room, the androids were already preparing to replace the damaged chip. They opened the protective cover and began removing the remains of the burned-out module, pulling out the compromised chip. The unprotected part of the chip was completely charred. Ralde and Gordan handed the androids their gigantic board. "Bridge the functioning part of the chip with this," Ralde commanded. The androids, obedient and precise like surgeons, began fitting wires and soldering contacts. They worked at incredible speed. The ship's wall trembled under their feet, lights flickering on and off. It seemed like every next hit would be the last. The only thing keeping the cruiser in one piece were the tireless little androids. And then, the androids finished connecting the board with the chip. The board glowed with warm light. At that moment, the cruiser came to life. The systems activated one by one. Shields, weapons, sensors, hypercommunications, main drive. "We're back in the game," Gordan said with a big mocking grin. The attackers noticed the cruiser returning to life and directed their beam at full power at the spot where they knew the sensitive chip was located. But this time they didn't get the result they expected. They fired the beam at full strength. But nothing. No power drop, no system shutdown. The cruiser remained fully functional. Ralde raised his hand. Fire! The Aurelian Star cruiser opened fire from all barrels. Its salvos dissected the enemy fleet. Blow after blow, the ships that had seemed unstoppable began to retreat in panic. After about 20 minutes, everything was over. Silence fell on the bridge. Magic from prehistory. Ralde collapsed into the command chair, completely exhausted. We have to replace the compromised chip on all Union ships, he said tiredly. Gordan looked at him and said, By thunder, what kind of magic did you pull this time? What are those wonders on the printed board? Ralde smiled. Just one word. Vacuum tubes. Gordan blinked. Tubes? What tubes, for heaven's sake? The old ones, Ralde explained. Predecessors of transistors, predecessors of microchips. Technology hundreds of years old. Big, bulky, they heat terribly, but they have one extraordinary property that saved us today. No form of radiation can interfere with them, neither electromagnetic, nor quantum, nor hyperspace. Gordan laughed, this time sincerely. Your prehistoric magic again. It may be prehistory to you, Ralde said, but for me, it's pure enjoyment. Gordan nodded. I admit, you saved us. Thank the knowledge and technology of our ancestors, not me, Ralde smiled. Gordan smiled even wider. Well then, long live prehistory. And let's not forget our heroic little ones. He turned to the nearest android. I officially apologize to our little heroes for underestimating you. If it weren't for you, there wouldn't be us now. Gordan raised his hand, imitating a toast. Ralde glanced at the little android the toast referred to. For a moment, he could swear that an expression of utter satisfaction flashed across the drawn eyes on its screen. This unexpected realization made him burst into laughter, causing several of his officers to turn their heads in confusion, not knowing the reason for their captain's joy. Well, they always thought he was a mad genius anyway. And the cruiser, carrying scars and victory, slowly turned its bow toward the stars, ready for the next battle. End of entry for space date Zenith 22 327.